right. It's the That's Enough Out of You podcast. I am your host, Bill Rader, and joining me, as he always does, is my co-host, Sean Kane. How's it going, Sean?
Billy Raids, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing all right, I want to open up here real quick by, I guess, apologizing to our listeners. My audio over the last few shows hasn't been the best. I know I've had some spotty Wi-Fi issues and breaking up a little bit in spots. So I think I got that all cleared up. You
finally paid your Comcast bill, Billy? Is that what it is?
You can send your complaints to Comcast, to Xfinity if you have any, because I don't know, the guy. And here's a good tip. If you have Comcast for your internet provider, call them every year and get your modem replaced. That's what the tech guy told me. He said, because what happens is they push out updates to these modems, and the hardware can't handle what the software is telling it to do. So then it just kind of shuts down.
And you have to call them because they ain't going to call you and say it's going to be replaced, right?
Exactly right. And then of course they whack you $100 to send the tech out.
Sure.
So just call them. He said, call us every year, and you can just go right to the store and get a new modem. They'll give it. I mean, you're paying for it anyway. You're paying a rental fee for it, so you might as well have a new one. But so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So hopefully this'll. We got a new new modem, and I think I'm actually connecting through an Ethernet cable now. So hopefully that'll clear up the issue, Sean.
All right. Sounds good, buddy.
All right. How about you? How's everything going with you?
Everything's going great, buddy. And I got a lot of questions. People are asking me who Nate the Great is, because his name came up. He asked a couple questions and mentioned his name a couple times. And actually, some people went back and listened to Garlic Jar when I brought him on to talk about MLK. And basically, Nate the Great he's like a son to me. I consider him like a son.
Yeah.
He's not my biological son, but Billy, it takes more than biological to just be a dad. And
That's right.
He's like a son to me. There's no other way to say it. So that's the way I think of him, and that's who he is, buddy. And that. You know him real good.
He's a good kid. He really is. He's a good kid. Yeah. No, you definitely. I mean, my kids are both adopted. You don't have to be a biological parent to be a parent. That's for sure.
You got to put the time in, buddy.
That's it.
And like you said, he's a great kid, and put the time in, and the results will be there, buddy.
Absolutely. And you're doing a good job, Sean. Really good.
Well, thanks, pal. We have fun every time we get together with your son, and
yeah, whether
it's at a hockey game or baseball or whatever.
Yep. Yeah.
So all right, pal, we're ready. You ready for tonight?
Yeah, what's the topic? I'm interested.
Oh, we got the DB Cooper mystery, Billy.
All right.
So you ready? Let's get into it.
I'm always ready. Let's kick it off. Let's go.
All right, Billy. So the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, 1971, a man named Dan Cooper. Okay. Now, it never gave the name DB Cooper. He gave the name Dan Cooper, but a reporter reported it as DB Cooper, and then somebody else reported it, and somebody else, and it just got reported as legend, like a lot of things in these cases, and it just became DB Cooper. But he gave the name Dan Cooper, and he was in a business suit with a suitcase, shirt, tie, the whole 9 yards. He boards a flight in Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington. And it was flight 305 on a Boeing 727. Capacity of 94, but there was only 37 passengers on board. Now, the ticket agent asked Cooper if he'd be returning, and he said no. Now, a lot of the witnesses, Billy, they're sketchy. There's two good sketches, the famous ones I'm sure you've seen. They show it all over the place. But right. They don't recall a lot about them, and a lot of them are inconsistent. But basically, they say he was between 35 and 40 years old, had receding black hair, wraparound glasses, and he had constant cloud of cigarette smoke around him. He was constantly smoking cigarettes. And then right after the takeoff, he gets the attention of stewardess Florence Schaffner, and he hands her a note. Now, she just assumed this was another guy hitting on her because, us guys were always hitting on stewardesses, right? And
Right.
she doesn't read it. She just puts it in her pocket and she walks away. And then the next time she walked by, Cooper motioned her over and he said, real calm, he says, you better read that note. I have a bomb. So, and he pointed to his briefcase. So she went over to another stewardess, Tina Mucklow, and she told her what happened. And then they went to the captain, William Scott. Now, he read the note and immediately he called air traffic control, who alerted the Seattle police and the FBI. Now, the note demanded $200,000, which today, Bill, would probably be the equivalent of like, I don't know, 1.2, $1.3 million. And he wanted 4 parachutes, okay? Or he would explode the bomb. So Captain Scott sent Schaffner back to sit by DB Cooper and try to keep him calm. And when she sat down, he showed her the bomb. And she said that what she saw was wires and a large battery and several red cylinders that looked like dynamite. So Cooper also demanded the money in $20 bills with a random serial numbers, not sequential order.
Right.
Now, the FBI did that, Billy, but what they did is they made sure that all the numbers began with the letter L, signifying that all of the bills were issued from the Federal Reserve National Bank of San Francisco, so they could track it. And almost every bill was dated 1969. Okay. So next, Cooper asked where the parachutes were from. And they said they were from McCord Air Force Base in Tacoma, Washington. Now, Cooper immediately says, no, I can't have them. I don't want any military chutes because military chutes open automatically. And he told the stewardess he needs civilian chutes equipped with user control ripcords. This way he could decide when the chute opens. They wouldn't open automatically. Now, that to me, Bill, signifies some kind of specialized training, probably military.
Right. Yep. Sounds like it.
And he also asked for 4 chutes, Bill, which is important because if he just asked for 1, the authorities could sabotage it. Whether they would do that, I don't know. But I mean, when he asked for 4, there's no way they're going to do that and risk that he takes passengers with him. So he's real calm, cool. He actually orders a bourbon and 7, and he's drinking there. And what they do is they land in Seattle, Bill, or they land in Seattle, but they're told they landed at an airport that wasn't the original airport they were supposed to land at. They were told they had engine problems, is what they told the passengers. So now all the passengers get off, Bill. Okay. Cooper stays with the stewardess, Mucklow, and the rest of the people leave. And of course, the pilots stay on board. So now it's just stewardess Mucklow and the pilots and Cooper. And then the authorities bring in the money and the chutes. And Mucklow is the one that actually would end up spending the most time with Cooper. And she's sitting by Cooper, and she actually starts joking with him, Bill, because she said his demeanor was so calm, and he was actually like kind of flirtatious with her. Okay. And she actually jokes. She says, that when he gets the money and he opens it up and he's checking the money, she's like, wow, that's a lot of money. And Cooper grabs a bundle of cash and he hands it to her. He says, here, you could have this. And she laughs and she says, I can't accept gratuities. And, so it goes to show you, Bill, that I don't think this was about the money to this guy, because even if, for what he's doing, even at that time, $200K is not, not a lot of money for what he's attempting to do here.
Right.
But he's really calm. He's cool and collected. And the plane at this time, Bill, is refueling because Cooper said that they were going to go to Mexico City. Okay. So the passengers are off, Bill. They don't know what's going on. None of the passengers know anything about, only the stewardess and the pilots know.
Right.
And Mucklow asks him, she says, do you have some kind of grudge against Northwest Airlines? And Cooper looks at her and he says, I just have a grudge. And then he tells the pilot specific instructions. He tells him that they have to fly 10,000 feet or less. The wing flaps must be at 15 degrees, and the airspeed must be no more than 150 knots, which is 200 miles per hour, with the wheels left down, and the cabin pressure has to be off. So this way,
So they could
when
open
he opens the door, yeah, he won't
Yeah.
be shot into the night like a bullet, you know, when the
Right.
stairs are lowered.
So, okay. So that makes a lot of sense. That was one of the questions I had, Sean. All right.
And he also told the captain, Bill, that he was wearing a wrist altimeter so he would know what the altitude is. Okay. And it's important to note, Bill, that his knowledge of the exact parachute dynamics of the 727 at that time was only known to a select few of Boeing officials, and also within covert operations in Vietnam and in the CIA and the military, because they were using 727s. So you're seeing the knowledge that this guy has, Bill, is very specific, and it's going to narrow the list of suspects that are who was actually qualified to know this information.
Mm-hmm.
So it was decided that on the way to Mexico, they would have to make a fuel stop, and they were going to stop in Reno, Nevada. Okay, so now there's a delay, Bill, in getting the fuel and getting all this together. So they're actually on the ground for 2 hours. Okay, and then the flight finally takes off, and then Cooper orders Mucklow, the stewardess, to join the rest of the crew in the cockpit. So she looks back as she's getting into the cockpit, and Cooper waves goodbye to her, gives her a nice big smile, and he waves goodbye. And then once the door closes, there's no way for the crew to see what's going on where Cooper is. There's no like peephole or anything. They're not going to know what's going on. So she closes the door, and then they take off. And then shortly after takeoff, a red light comes on, okay, with a message, open door. So the pilots start, they know that the stairs were down when that light comes on. So the pilot asks over the intercom, asks Cooper if he needs anything. Is everything okay? And Cooper responds, yes, everything is okay. So around 10 minutes later, after that, the crew feels like a slight dip in the elevation of the jet's nose, which they call a pressure bump. And then that's closely followed by a correction adjustment in the tail. So the captain there figures this is when Cooper jumped. So he noted that at this time when this happened, they were over the Lewis River, about 25 miles north of Portland. Okay. And they didn't hear from Cooper again. And because they figured this is when he jumped, but they didn't want to, you know, open the door and take a chance. So they continued on to the route to Reno. And, you know, the plane lands, and the pilot asks over the intercom, is everything okay? Then he asks again, is everything okay? No response. So they open the door, check everything. Cooper is gone. He's off into history as a legend and a folk hero. And Bill, I just want to put you in Cooper's shoes for a second, buddy. You're on the steps of this airplane, on the stairs, okay? You're 10,000 miles off the ground. You're in a suit and tie, dress shoes. You're looking out into the abyss, into complete darkness in a rainstorm. The wind is unbelievable. Mm-hmm. And you jump into the night, Bill.
So 10,000, not 10,000 miles. Well, here's
10,000 feet.
Here's the problem, Sean.
Go ahead.
I'm terrified of heights. I won't even get on a plane.
Well, I get it, Bill. I get it. But I'm just saying, think of the stones on this guy, Bill.
Yeah. He
must have had ice running through his veins to be able to do this, Bill. 10,000 miles. What did I say, Bill? 10,000 feet?
Yeah, you said 10,000 miles. It's 10,000 feet. So I have so many questions, Sean. I just
go ahead.
I mean, this sounds like it sounds like urban legend to me. I guess it's a real story.
Well, it is a real story, Bill. It definitely happened. I mean, it's not a legend. Like, they didn't make it up.
Yeah. Here's the obvious question.
Mm-hmm.
Why, if they're on the ground refueling the plane in, what was it, right. Seattle?
Yeah.
It's not, it takes a little while to refuel a plane.
Right.
Why did they not have like a SWAT team descend
Well,
on the plane. I mean, I realize he had a bomb.
he had hostages, Bill. I guess I'm sure, they probably went over that scenario.
Yeah.
I'm sure they talked about that scenario, but maybe they felt, that it wasn't the best option. You'd have to ask the FBI, Bill. The FBI was in control of the scene, and I guess that was the decision they made to give him the parachutes, give him the money. They were going to make sure they were going to be able to track the money.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It's a great question. Why didn't they send in a SWAT team?
I mean, I would assume that it would be so much more dangerous to let them do what they did, to let this guy, be on the plane with a bomb, because who knows if the bomb's going to go off at any time. I mean, he may not even mean to detonate it, and it would just go off and explode this plane in midair. Who knows? I mean, it could have been above a neighborhood. It could have killed hundreds of people.
Sure. And maybe the pilots describing, the situation and Cooper's calm demeanor, maybe they felt that, it wasn't the right move to send in a SWAT team. I don't know, Billy. I mean, that's a question that, one thing though, Bill, is I heard like a lot of people consider this a victimless crime. I've heard a lot of people say that. And it's really not, because he had hostages. He's threatening the terroristic threats.
Right.
I mean, the passengers on the flight, even though they didn't know what was going on, they were still under this threat. So I don't know. Maybe the authorities didn't consider it that serious at the time, and they felt this was their best, the way to end it peacefully without getting anybody hurt. I don't know, Bill.
I mean, this was not Billy the Kid, where he's riding in on horseback, with a 6-shooter and holding up a bank and riding off on the horse.
Right.
This is a play. There's people's lives at stake. I don't get it. There were hijackings going on left and right during that time. I mean, there's a lot of planes being hijacked.
There was. And some of the suspects were actually, like Richard McCoy was one of the suspects, and he actually pulled one of these off earlier before this.
So you would think that they would have some kind of a protocol.
Well, maybe they were busy. Bill, maybe they were busy with the COINTELPRO operation, going after the civil rights movement. Maybe that was more important,
That sounds like it, yeah. Boy, this is crazy
well,
story.
It is. I hear what you're saying, Bill, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I mean, they probably should have been more aggressive, you would think.
Yeah. All right. I know there's more to it, Sean, if you want to continue.
So what we're going to get into, Bill, because it's just like everything else, Bill. It's like JFK and Jimmy Hoffa and every conspiracy theory you could believe is out there. And people confess to being DB Cooper, and people said this guy's DB Cooper. And, as time went on, they never found them. They never found any trace of them. And, there's a lot of different suspects. There's been a million shows on this and podcasts, and it's been a mystery since 1971. And we're going to focus, Bill, on one particular investigation, because for me, this is the most important one, and I think it's the closest one to the truth. I'm not saying that this is 100% the guy that is DB Cooper, but I'm saying that this investigation, I think, is closer than any of the others. And for various reasons that I'm going to explain, because I see the same things that happen to like Jim Garrison and Judge Joe Brown and people like that. When they're on to something, the forces, the powers that be come down on them.
Now, Sean, before you get there, though, there was some ransom money that they recovered, that they found.
Well, right. I'm going to get into that, Billy.
Okay. All right.
Don't worry, buddy. I got it covered, pal. I'm going to get into all that.
All right.
So the guy I'm talking about, Bill, is investigative reporter Tom Colbert. Okay. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he's been around a long time. He's a good investigative reporter. And, we're going to backtrack a little bit. You brought up the money. So in 1980, Bill, a small portion of the money was found on the banks of the Columbia River. Okay. And it was found by this couple, Dwayne and Patricia Ingram, and their eight-year-old son at the time, Brian. And they found the money buried in the sand. Now, where Colbert's investigation picks up is there was a drug runner by the name of Ron Carlson. Okay. who came forward, and he said that there was a gangster named Dick Briggs, who was a gangster in the Pacific Northwest. And Dick Briggs told Carlson that he was DB Cooper. Now, I know a lot of people say they're DB Cooper, this and that. So Carlson didn't believe him, because at this point, Bill, DB Cooper's like a folk hero, Bill. He's a legend. I mean, they have bars named after him out there. They have songs they written over him. I mean, so Carlson didn't believe Briggs. So he says to him at a party, he says, come on, man, you know, like, prove it if you're really DB Cooper. So Carlson says, or Briggs says to Carlson, he says, see that couple over there? He says, tomorrow that couple is going to find some of my money. And then the world is going to know that DB Cooper survived and he's out there. And like, I'm going to shove it right in the authorities' face, and they can't do anything about it. So Carson's like, yeah, okay, whatever, you know? So he's driving back from the party. He's on the road next day, and he hears on the radio that money's been recovered. So he quick gets to TV, and he turns the TV on, and he sees the couple, Bill, this Dwayne and Patricia Ingram.
Wow.
That you know, Dick Briggs said, they're going to find my money. And here's the couple on TV saying they found it in the sand. So Colbert gets onto this, you know, and he's immediately looking into Dick Briggs. And Dick Briggs was a charismatic, you know, type of gangster. He was really flamboyant. But as soon as he sees a picture of Dick Briggs, he's like, this guy doesn't fit the profile. I mean, he's short, muscular, like a bodybuilder type. I mean, you know, this guy, but Cooper was an average size guy. Dick Briggs is probably like shorter, like 5'8", like probably like 225, Bill, like solid muscle. Like there's no way this guy's DB Cooper. Yeah. But Colbert says, obviously he knows something. Okay. So he said, let's check into his known associates. And when they did that, one name set off all the sirens and all the bells and whistles, Bill. And that was an early FBI suspect in the case by the name of Robert Wesley Rackstraw. Okay, now when you look at Rackstraw's resume, he's got all the skills to be DB Cooper. Covert ops in the CIA, special forces, served in Vietnam. He was involved in Vietnam, Bill. He was in night insertions, airdrops from 727s out of bases in Thailand. Okay, so, and according to his retired lieutenant, Colonel Ken Overturf, who was Rackstraw's commanding officer in Vietnam, okay, and Colbert interviewed him, and Overturf thinks that Rackstraw is Cooper. He says, without question, Rackstraw has the skills to be DB Cooper. And here's a direct quote from Overturf. He says, he had all the intellect and capabilities to determine the best type of parachute needed and to do the necessary calculations to make the jump and then arrange for successful recovery once he's on the ground. And he said the fact that he performed all these heroic actions in Vietnam validate that he would have the courage and the go to hell attitude necessary to actually attempt a jump like DB Cooper in the first place. Because, Bill, you're talking about a very small suspect pool that could actually even attempt at this and have the knowledge that Cooper had about 727s, about parachutes, about skydiving. I mean, this is a very specific skill set. And Colbert's investigation ended up being, he wrote a book. It's a very good book. And he had a History Channel special, Bill. I don't know if you've seen this. It was a few years back. And it was a few parts. I think it was like a 4-part, maybe 5-part. And he included, you know, Rackstraw's commanding officer, which he said he thinks is Cooper. He also included Rackstraw's sister, who believed that Rackstraw was Cooper. And the thing is, in the investigation, Colbert spends a lot of time proving that Rackstraw became this con man in Oregon named Norman DeWinter. So this guy DeWinter shows up right outside Portland, right before Cooper makes this jump, okay? And he says he's like a rich man from Switzerland or something like that, and he comes into this small town, and other people get to know him, and then he disappears right before the Cooper jump. Now, I believe that Colbert definitely proves that Rackstraw was this guy De Winter, because he showed pictures of Rackstraw to the town, people in the town, and they said, yeah, this is definitely the guy. But that doesn't necessarily prove that he's Cooper. All that really proves is that Rackstraw was, a few miles away from that airport, right before Cooper boards that plane.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's enough to say, hey, this is the guy, but it's definitely suspicious, But what convinced me, Bill, is that the Colbert investigation on History Channel, he kept getting a lot of circumstantial evidence. They kept building up against Rackstraw, and pieces of evidence. He ended up with like 100 and some pieces of evidence tying Rackstraw to Cooper. Okay. And he had the History Channel brings on an FBI agent by the name of Fuentes, an ex-FBI agent, and another guy, another investigative reporter, I forget his name. And then Colbert's partner was a guy by the name of Jim Forbes. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he's a pretty famous investigator, reporter. He's an author. And they were all on board for like the first like 3 parts of this series, And then all of a sudden, Bill, as the evidence started building, they start turning. They start turning against Colbert, almost like they set him up. And then right after the special airs in the History Channel, the FBI closes the case. And I'm thinking, after all this time, after 1971, you're investigating the D.B. Cooper case, and here's this guy brings you all this evidence. Now, whether it's enough to say this is, definitively the guy, but you just close the case like that, to me gets me very suspicious, Bill. And then I start reading in the paper all this stuff coming out about Colbert, negative attention, like the media's attacking him, and it's almost like Jim Garrison again. So I'm thinking this guy's on to something, Billy. And we know Rackstraw was in the CIA. We know he was special forces in Vietnam. Obviously, they're protecting something, And one of the things, Bill, in the special, Colbert takes a video. Okay, so he interviewed that drug dealer Carlson, and he takes the video to the couple, and that found the money. Okay, and he takes it to the guy. The girl didn't want to come on, but the guy, Dwayne Ingram, and he shows the video of Carlson saying, that's the guy over there that's going to find or Carlson saying, Briggs said, that's the guy over there that's going to find my money, that couple over there. And Bill, you could see this guy Ingram squirming in his seat, like he wanted to get out of there so bad. Like, to me, that guy was guilty. I mean, he was so like, and everybody, you could see the look on the FBI guy, Fuentes, you could see the look on his face, like, yeah, like this guy's hiding something. Like, he just did not want any part of this. He wanted to crawl under his couch, Bill.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So to me, there's something there, Billy. There's something there. Okay. But this is when everybody turns on Colbert. Is he went to Tina Mucklow, who was the stewardess, who spent the most time with D.B. Cooper, and he played a tape of Rackstraw's voice for Mucklow. Okay. Now, Mucklow at this time is in her 70s. She wasn't in great health. She was having memory problems, remembering stuff, and she hasn't talked to the media at this point in like 10 years. And when she did, the last time she did, she couldn't remember like hardly anything. So when she hears the tape, and she's listening like real intently, Bill, listening to the voice, and she's not saying nothing, but you can see she's really listening. And then all of a sudden she says, I don't think that's the guy. Mm-hmm. And everybody jumps on it. Like, everybody's like, okay, he's on to nothing. And all the evidence that he presented so far is gone, because this lady in her 70s, you're asking her to remember something from 50 years ago. Remember, she was only spent a little time with this guy,
right,
50 years ago, and her memory's not the best at this point. So if she came out and she said, yeah, that's him, I would have been suspicious of that. What do you think of that, Billy?
Well, I didn't couldn't they have found like a picture of him or something? Because
Well,
I
they
see
do.
there was a picture of him.
There is a picture.
Been arrested shortly after, a few years later.
Yeah, well, he was originally an FBI suspect in the case, Bill.
Right.
And they dropped it for a reason they have never explained. They dropped him as a suspect. But the picture, if I seen a picture of him lined up next to the composite of Cooper, and I'll tell you,
I'm looking at right now.
Are you? I think it's pretty
similar.
close.
They
it's
do
similar, right?
But you would think she, in a traumatic situation like that, and she must have been sitting right next to him for a
she was, Bill. She was, he was flirting with her, Bill.
Right. So you would think that if she saw the picture, I'm just surprised that they wouldn't have shown her a picture of him.
Well, as far as I know, they didn't. I mean, I don't know if they, they didn't show it in the History Channel special if they did. But yeah, you would think they would have. But thing is, Bill, she wasn't remembering much of anything. Maybe she shut it out of her memory,
right?
Or she was just having issues, remembering things. Remember,
yeah.
Bill, you're asking her to 50 years ago.
Was she the only person who was still alive at that time from the flight crew?
No, the pilots, they had the pilot on there, but the pilot didn't really see enough of Cooper. Because remember, Bill, they're in the cockpit. They can't see back there what's going on. The other stewardess didn't spend as much time with him,
right,
as Mucklow did. So she was the best. And the passengers, there was a couple of passengers they interviewed that, had some kind of interaction with Cooper, but not much. So really,
well, I mean, the police will tell you it's tough to rely on eyewitness testimony, even a couple of hours after the crime. I mean, this is, like you said, it's 50 years later. So,
here's the thing, though, Billy. Here's the thing. So the government starts sabotaging the case. In my opinion, they dropped it. They dropped the investigation, but they start really, like, you see the media just hammering Colbert. Okay, but here's the thing that gets me. Colbert wanted to find out, because remember what they said about Cooper was there was smoke all around him from cigarettes. He was smoking like a chimney, Bill, this whole flight. And they collected the cigarette butts. Okay, now he was wearing gloves and stuff, but the thing is, even though the technology wasn't there with DNA at the time, it's there now. So Colbert said, let's test the DNA on those cigarette butts, and we'll find out once and for all who's DB Cooper. And Colbert was told the cigarette butts are missing. I mean, Bill, maybe the government put it with JFK's brain, because they lost that too.
Well, and even
how are they missing, Bill?
But even if they had it, though, Sean, DNA breaks down over years. I don't know that they'd be able to necessarily get a match. And they
maybe not, Bill, but it's worth a shot, no?
Oh, sure, it would be. But again, Sean, I'm just playing devil's advocate here. But and I'm also looking at the list of suspects. I mean, there's so many suspects.
Well, there's a million suspects, Bill.
Even a woman.
Yeah. There's we would be here all night if we go over every suspect. But to me, Bill, another thing on Rackstraw was he kept getting arrested, Bill. Okay, and Colbert proves this. He kept getting arrested, and the charges were dropped. So again, you see this with Oswald. You see this when we get to an episode on Charles Manson, how many times he got arrested and the charges got dropped. Like, somebody's protecting him,
right?
And getting him out of these charges, and then Colbert, some of the evidence, Bill, that he found an old parachute strap and a piece of foam from a parachute backpack that he connected to Rackstraw that he gave to the FBI to run tests on. And he never heard back from Bill. They dropped the case. And it's just like, I don't know. It's just, to me, Bill, maybe I see too much of this stuff already, but it's just, what is the government covering up here? Like, maybe Rackstraw isn't DB Cooper, but he's got to have some involvement in something that they don't want his name involved in anything. Right. You know what I mean? Like, and there was one other piece of evidence, Bill. You know what it was? It was so Colbert had this letter of confession, he said, was written by DB Cooper in 1971, but it was coded, and it was all in Army codes. Okay. And it was matched the Army unit that Rackstraw was in, the codes that they use. And Colbert put a team together of code breakers, and they were familiar with that unit. Some of them were from that unit, and they broke the code, Bill. And according to them, Colbert, it's a confession with Rackstraw's name in it. Okay, so again, could I sit here and say 100% that's the guy that's DB Cooper? No, I can't. And Rackstraw died in 2019. So,
Right.
And Colbert did confront him. And then there was also something that Rackstraw said he was going to come out and confess. And then he said that was just a stunt. So, you know, he also, another thing is, Bill, Rackstraw had an uncle who was an expert skydiver, and he was Rackstraw's hero. You know what his name was? Ed Cooper.
Interesting.
I mean, you start putting all these together, Bill, and to me, there's just something there. Now, again, I can't say Rackstraw's DB Cooper. I can't say that. I don't think Colbert proven 100% this is the guy, but I think when you look at all the investigations and all the other suspects, the million suspects that are out there, it's the closest one. It's like the Hoffa case, Bill. This is the best explanation I could come up with. But again, it's a mystery that went on since 1971, and the government, again, you know, they dropped the ball here.
Right. Well, I guess, Sean, I mean, and when did they close the case? 2016, 2017?
Yeah, around there. That's when right after the History Channel special, Bill. Right after Colbert came out with all this evidence, they just said, we're done. Case closed.
I mean, they must figure, look, why are we wasting money? Why are we wasting resources? In the end, it ended up.
But Bill, they wasted all this time. They were investigating it since 71. I mean, it was an ongoing investigation from 71 to 2016 or 17.
Well, I'm sure it wasn't. Who knows if it was really an active investigation? Maybe it opened, but who knows if anybody was actually doing anything about it?
Well, according to them, they had agents on it assigned to it.
Well, and they never charged anybody, or at least didn't. Right? Did they ever charge?
No, they never charged anybody. But Rackstraw was originally one of the suspects, and Colbert tried to find out why did they drop him as a suspect, and he never got an answer.
So I guess what they're who knows what they're thinking. I mean, if I was the FBI director, I'd say, look, in the end, nobody got hurt. $200,000, you know, the way the government pisses away money, that's, you know, it's like a drop in the, it's something they'd lose in the couch cushions. So, I mean, that doesn't.
Well, really... none of the money was ever spent. I mean, because they could have tracked it.
Right.
You know, they just found that money in the sand, but that was, you know, that was it. And they never found any trace of any, you know, body, or they searched the woods there. But I mean, you're searching the Pacific Northwest, Bill, you probably got a better chance of finding Bigfoot.
Right.
I mean, it's so big there. I mean, seriously, like.
Yeah. Who knows? I think it's at this point, you know, close the case. Again, if I was FBI director, I'd just say close the case. It's not even
really after all even when this guy's presenting you evidence, Bill.
Well,
I mean, remember, Bill, when Colbert is presenting this evidence, Rackstraw's still alive. He's still alive at this point. You could charge him if you think the evidence is enough. You know,
and who knows? Maybe they didn't think it was enough. I don't know, Sean. I you know, obviously they didn't think it was enough because they didn't charge him. Or maybe, like you said, there's something that they're hiding. Maybe he was.
Well, the missing cigarettes bothers me, Bill. I mean, how do you lose this evidence? Like, I mean, come on, Bill. You're supposed to, the chain of custody in a case is so important, Bill. And how do you lose? You're losing Kennedy's brain. I mean, how do you lose this stuff?
Well, that's that. And I can't wait till we get Jim DiEugenio back to talk about that. But, you know, I don't know. How do you lose cigarette butts? I have no idea. I don't know, Sean. I think it's like you said, maybe he was involved in some sort of covert op. They didn't want.
Well, he was. There's no doubt about that, Bill. His commanding officer said he was recruited into covert ops. And, you know, there's a record. A lot of his record is classified, but we know he did these operations in Vietnam with the 727s. I mean, there's stuff we know about his record, you know, with Rackstraw, what he had the skill set. His commanding officer even said he had the skill set to beat DB Cooper. There's no doubt about it. So
who knows? I mean, maybe what they said to this guy is, look, you could go hijack a plane and take money and nothing would ever happen to you. And he probably went, okay, let me try that.
Well, maybe it was a test run for some other operation.
Maybe.
Though.
You never know.
But you don't know what it was. Maybe it was a sanctioned operation. You don't know if it was sanctioned.
would they put civilians in harm's way doing something like that? I don't
Bill,
know.
seriously, after all the podcasts we did, you're going to ask that question? Come on, Bill. Seriously? I mean, Bill, they wanted to drop a bomb in Vietnam and their own soldiers.
Right. I know.
I mean, come on, Billy.
I guess there's still, I still have some blinders on, but
I guess, Billy, but me and you are different. I guess you see the good in people, buddy, but I don't know. I tend to see the dark side of people.
yep.
But anyway, it's a mystery, Billy, and it's in that case is closed now, and we're probably never going to know.
Was there ever a movie made about this?
Oh, there was tons of movies, Bill.
Okay.
There's tons of movies. You know what? There wasn't a lot that I would say is really good. There actually been a lot of shows like TV series that brought Cooper into it, Bill. I don't know if you remember the show Numbers. Do you remember that show?
I never watched it. I do remember.
They had an episode. There was also I can't think of the name of that show, but there was another series they did on DB Cooper, and there was a few over the years that they did episode on Cooper, but none of the movies I don't think were that great and everything. But
yeah,
you know, some of the books like Colbert's book is worth the reading. I think Colbert's book is really good.
Mm-hmm.
There's some others, you know, but like I said, Bill, the suspect pool is so big, but to me, the legitimate suspects, the pool is really small because like my dad and my uncle said, they knew people that served that had this skill to do that, but it was very limited. Like you're talking about a very specialized skill, and the way Cooper knew what he was doing, knew what to ask for, knew what kind of parachute to use. And, you know, this is a specific skill set. So the list of suspects cannot be that big. There's not many people with that kind of skill level.
Maybe it was Liam Neeson.
Well, he's one of them, Billy. He had that special set of skills.
It's a very particular set of skills.
This is true, buddy. So that's about it, pal. Any other questions you got on that one? Because when you know, it's a mystery that's probably never going to be solved, but you know, we did our best.
I doubt it'll ever be solved, but
not that the case is closed now. So
it's an interesting story, though. It really is. It's a cool story. I enjoyed this show. It was good.
Yeah, and then you know, people could go back and check out that History Channel special with Colbert and see for yourself and read his book and see what you think of the evidence he compiled.
Yeah,
because I think, you know, it's pretty compelling.
Yeah. All right. Good job, Sean.
All right, buddy. And you keep trusting the government, pal. Maybe they'll get your mail on time.
Yeah. Right.
Haven't got mail in 4 days, buddy.
Well. Oh, all right. Good job. All right, Sean, how do people get in touch with the show if they want to ask us questions about DB Cooper?
You can find us at social media, buddy. I'm all over the place. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Seems a lot of people like to message on Facebook, WhatsApp, you know, all that. I'm on there. People like to reach out, and now we're on Patreon, buddy.
That's right. Yeah, we're gonna start putting some good content on Patreon. We still have to decide what we're gonna do there, but yeah, and a lot more good stuff to come. We got some great stuff.
And I'm also working on creating a website, buddy.
All right.
So that's, you know, I got it together. Just got to add a couple things to it, and hopefully that'll be up shortly.
Oh, and I do want to mention this, Sean. By the time this gets posted, the episode will have been up for a while. But Sean and I appeared on another podcast called The Brian Lennon Show.
Right.
And if you're looking for it, you'll want to type. It's all one word. The Brian Lennon Show. It spells his name BrianLennon. So it's the Brian Lennon Show, and you can find it on Substack, which is a podcast app. It's a kind of a creative app, and then he also posts the video on YouTube. But check it out, because it's a great podcast, and we appeared on an episode of the Brian Lennon Show, just kind of a casual chat. Just, you know, they were asking us, Brian and Gary, the hosts of that show, they were asking us about this podcast. So definitely check that out. And And then, you know, at some point we're going to have them on our podcast. We want to spend some time with them. Maybe we'll have some topics for them, Sean, and
Yeah, definitely.
get
Bring
there.
him on, and then you know what? We should bring the garlic jar on again. Maybe Jenna will come back, and
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
we do got some good guests lined up, Bill. Coming up, we're keeping going, Bill.
Yeah,
We got a lot
Well-
of guests lined up.
by the time this airs, that we'll have had some good guests already out there. So should be, and then we, you know, more to come. I mean, we just
More to come, buddy.
we keep going. We keep going with this great podcast, or at least we think it's great. I don't know.
Well, the feedback has been positive, Bill, and we're getting a lot of downloads and views, and you know, if people could help on Patreon, that'll be nice.
Yeah.
Helps get grow the show and get some more authors in here and make the show better, Billy.
That's what we're trying to do each time. That's why I had to call. That's why I spent 3 hours on the phone with Comcast to try to get my Wi-Fi fixed.
That's always fun too.
That was great. A lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right, Sean, we're going to wrap it up, and that's enough out of you.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.